So, having spent several lessons gathering the information together as to whether the British Empire was good or bad, we now pose the question, how far do you agree? So this is the 16-mark style essay question. This is probably the most challenging of all GCSE questions across all papers in terms of the depth of knowledge and the literacy and analytical skills required. So, the recap is to pull together who are our winners and losers, and from this, have an opinion. Try and visualize that opinion on a line. How good was the empire? How bad was the empire? Where exactly on that line do you fall? Describe it. Do you strongly agree? Do you strongly disagree? Do you partly agree? Read the two interpretations below and complete the questions that follow to remind people of interpretations and how they are different. How far do you agree? How far do you agree with interpretation 1 about the British Empire? So one goes back, there's interpretation 1, and interpretations are always secondary. They are always based upon evidence that historians have studied themselves. Students will be coming to their own interpretation about the British Empire. How far do you agree with interpretation 1? So obviously we're expecting the students to firstly have their own opinion. Now we have to test their opinion against interpretation 1. There is the writing frame. Remember, the key part with this is to tell me why you agree with the interpretation and then why you disagree with the interpretation before you reach a conclusion at the end. However, I must stress the importance for students to make sure in their own mind they know the interpretation before they start. They know their opinion before they start. Now, in this write-up, we're asking students to do 2 paragraphs and a conclusion. In the GCSE exam, however, given 20 to 25 minutes, which is the time allocation for this style of question, we would expect at least 3 paragraphs and a conclusion. So the stretch on this would be to encourage your students to be thinking about writing 2 paragraphs for one side of the argument. So for example, they could do 2 paragraphs on why they agree with interpretation 1 and 1 paragraph why they don't, or the other way around. The concept of a 2-sided argument. Remember, it's an interpretation, never a definitive answer. So you have to acknowledge both sides. And the writing frame again. Next lesson we will look at the consequences and legacy of the British Empire.